Hello, everybody. I'm told this is going to be the second women's panel of the day. So, belated Happy Women's Day to all the men and the women in the room. A big round of applause, especially to all the women in the room, please. Louder. I'm sure the men are not clapping. So, can we have it a little more louder? Thank you. Agency of the future, the ongoing evolution. How many of you are from the agency business in the room? Can you put your hands up? Okay. How many of you are from the client side? In marketing teams? Okay. And how many of you are from tech companies? Okay. Who have I not called out? Where do you all work from? Media companies. Okay. Yeah, how many of you are from media companies? Oh, wow. Okay, great. I genuinely hope that this panel discussion is going to be interesting and have answers to some of the questions that all of you may have. The way we've structured this panel discussion is that we're going to have every panelist come onto the stage and talk to you about what they think is the agency of the future and how their own organization is actually evolving to address the challenge that agencies have today. So the three women panelists will come up on stage one after the other and give their perspective. Post which we will have a panel discussion on some of the hot topics that actually are going to be defining the agency of the future, be it in terms of hiring, be it in terms of commercial models to work with clients, be it in terms of culture, and post that we'll open it up for a Q&A. What we'll also do as we are discussing the hot topics is that after we finish discussing with the panel, in between those hot topics, we'll also open up the floor so that anyone who has a question on the hot topic that we're talking about can actually address it immediately before we move on to the next hot button topic that we would want to discuss. So the first panelist that I'm going to invite on stage is Lara Balsara. From Madison, who probably needs no introduction, neither does the company and neither does Lara. She's the executive director of Madison World and comes from an organization that has evolved over a period of time in terms of many specialisms that they've actually formed to service client needs in the market. Lara, all yours.
So thanks, Punitha, for the introduction. So good evening, everyone. So everything around us has changed, right? We live in a highly connected world with a disconnected consumer, disconnected to marketing at least. Consumers want instant gratification. Media is no longer what it used to be. Everything is a media touch point today. Technology has disrupted all facets of marketing as we knew it. And marketers are increasingly focusing on costs and rates, and some clients are even taking marketing and advertising in-house. Add to all this, consultants are threatening to take over our jobs, and client-agency relationships are getting shorter and shorter. Marketing can no longer be evaluated on brand evaluation parameters alone. Shareholders want to evaluate it on the business parameters. In fact, Shiv Kumar, the ex-head of Pepsi and Nokia, and now at Aditya Birla, a few weeks ago at one of our events, spoke about the need and the role of a chief growth officer, not just a chief marketing officer. So this session actually has been rightly titled as the ongoing evolution, because like in everything in life, change is the only constant, right? And in this ever-changing and complex world, the need of the hour is to keep things simple. We love to get ourselves tied into knot and get everything complicated and complex. So whilst everything around us has changed and the tools and the evaluation parameters have changed, I think some fundamentals will not change. So Sergio Zimin, the famous marketer of Coke, said, the sole purpose of marketing is to sell more to more people, more often, and at a higher price. Think about it. Why else would anybody advertise? So Peter Drucker came up with this concept of management by objective years and years ago. At Madison, we've developed a concept of media by objective. And what is the objective or the outcomes that we want our media to achieve? So basically, we want to move our media plans, and we want our media plans to be evaluated based on business outcomes that they achieve, and not on interim parameters like reach frequency, GRP, CPT, CPRP. Very briefly, this is our outcomes planning approach. So we start off by saying what are the strategic goals that we want to achieve, what are sources of growth, where are consumers going to come from, how do we reach out to these consumers, do we need to acquire new consumers or retain existing ones, do we need to upsell? And to achieve our business objectives, do we have to develop the category or develop the brand? So this becomes like the starting point of how we start going about doing a media plan. And then I won't take you through the rest, but it's all there up for you. So coming to the future, so what does the future hold? I've been doing some thinking, and I've put down some of my thoughts. So if programmatic works for digital, why not programmatic work for traditional media too? I think it's just a matter of time. Total agency earnings and not just incentive are going to get more and more linked to achieving the business results. Okay. There possibly could be more further unbundling with creators, conceptualizers, and strategists on one side and executors in another company. And with talent becoming more and more scarce and more expensive, prosperity setting in, concepts like work-life balance getting widely propagated, agencies may have a large force of part-time employees or employees on call to use as and when needed, and these people would be paid based on what they deliver and not based on the hours they spend at the agency. And with so much focus on cost cutting, especially overhead costs, will the holding company model cease to exist? Or will it actually lose the flavor of the day? Already some regional structures are being disbanded to save on cost and improve the speed of action. And the king of all, or should I say the queen of all, would be that person who has the knack to process huge data and make a gripping story out of that data and at least intelligently interpret that data. So coming to Madison, in our not so short history of 30 years, it's changed and evolved so much. So when we started 30 years ago, we were just one full service company where everyone did everything, whether it was a media plan or a TV campaign or launch an event or putting up cinema slides. Then as a trend of specialization got in, we were the first media AR in the country in 1999. And by roughly 2005, we had several specialist units in different areas of communication like creative media, PR. But each of these units was working pretty independently, managing its own set of clients. And if a client worked with more than 2 units, it was more by default rather than design. So today we have 24 units across 11 functional areas of communication with a lot more collaboration amongst each unit. We've grown organically and through acquisitions. Our business heads in media act as a brand custodian, thinking of the master strategy or outcomes that they want to achieve for their brands and clients. And then they rope in different specialist units. So I would like to end this at this AdTech event by what the co-founder and engineer of Apple, Steve Wozniak, recently said in the Economic Times. I think a gentle reminder that despite all the complexity, the ever-changing technology, complexity, and large corporations, the intelligent human being will continue to be king or queen. Thank you.
Thank you, Lara. That was interesting. Keep it simple, stupid. And it's all about diversification and collaboration. The next person we have on stage is Joe Catalano, who's the CEO Asia Pacific of iProspect. We were just joking during the break that we were trying to put a list of all the digital agencies in the country and the holding company against those digital agencies. And so we had Sokriti, Dan, which is Denso Ages Network, Merkle, Denso Ages Network, Columbus, Denso Ages Network, Web Chutney, Denso Ages Network, Isobar, Denso Ages Network, iProspect Denso Ages Network and what Consult Denso Ages Network. Yeah? Okay, Fractal, Denso Ages Network, that's Vivek here. So essentially, Denso Ages Network is obviously trying to build the agency of the future, putting digital at its core and being digitally led. And all over to you, Joanna, to actually talk to us a little more about it.
Okay, thanks. But remember, iProspect is the best amongst all those agencies. First of all, thanks so much. It's a pleasure to be here today. I'm actually not based in India. I'm based in Singapore, but I love to come to this market, and so it's a real pleasure to be able to come and share some thoughts with you. I thought it was really interesting. Punitha loves a little bit of a debate and really wants this to be a debate, but when I was listening to Lara, it's really uncanny how the trends are what they are. And unfortunately, I think you will see that we're all going to kind of converge in a bit of the same direction. And, Lara, you were sounding a little bit like a performance agency, I have to say. So I'm just going to kind of walk you through, I've been in this role for about a year. It's my first time agency side, so it's been quite an amazing adventure and challenge. And I wanted to kind of walk you through sort of the thinking that we've been kind of going through in the last 12 months to kind of arrive at where we are today, and hopefully a strategy in terms of where we will go in the next 12 to 18 months. So the first is, again, not so dissimilar to what Lara was mentioning. Today, sorry, these mics are a bit funny, so can you hear me? Yes, no? One is on and one is off, and one is a bit funny. Okay, so anyway, what we see is there are two sort of large forces that are really defining the change, right? We're in a period of unprecedented change, we all know this. And these two forces are really deeply connected. The first is that consumer behavior really changes pretty dramatically under the influence of what we call digital possibility. We're all on our phones all the time, right? We're connected in a window of 24 hours. We're consuming and utilizing digital in a really voracious way. And technology actually fuels that appetite. And so what technology is doing, it's making everything faster, more seamless, more intuitive, easy to use. We hear this from our friends who are producing these tech devices. And so, we are saying that it's not that we're just in the digital economy, we're actually in what we call the expectation economy. And what the expectation economy delivers to us, and again, this is important because we have to start, as Lara rightly said, with the consumer, is that we have consumers who have almost impossibly high expectations of the brands. And as agencies, that's what we do. We work with brands, we build them, we're their custodians. And so these consumers, if you just take the example of Apple, Apple, it's a highly innovative company. And each year, every year that they produce a release of each of their main devices, there's significant iteration and improvements that are baked in. And yet there's still a segment of Apple consumers who are saying, why isn't it better, right? Why isn't it more transformative? So our expectations are very high. So when we started, again, going back to the consumer, we started with the consumer. We were looking at what was happening. And again, similar to what Lara was saying, we found that specifically in digital, we work exclusively in digital, consumers were interacting with brands in an increasingly shorter path to purchase. When I started in digital over 10 years ago, there were many, many touch points along that path to purchase. Now there are far, far fewer. And we believe that this notion of brand versus performance marketing actually doesn't exist. So what does that mean for brands? It's really forcing brands to reinvent this notion of consumer engagement. They have to think really hard about it. And we believe they need to focus on touch point optimization. So that's how we think about it, right? How do you optimize every touch point in order to drive purchase as part of a performance journey? And again, you mentioned the kind of Coca-Cola quote. It's kind of how I think about it. When we meet with clients, they sort of want two things. Obviously, they want their brand to be top of mind with consumers. But why? Because they want to sell something. And not only do they want to sell something, they want to increase customer lifetime value. I mean, that's really what it is. So then that comes to us. What's the role that agencies need to play in this, right? It's no longer about buying media. It's really about enabling through strategy, through data, through technology. These three are absolutely key in order to help deliver that consumer experience that drives purchase and loyalty. So kind of continuing on this theme, I'm just going to load all the builds. Continuing on this theme of the expectation economy, this notion of first impressions is really, really critical. There was a survey that was done by a company called Lithium, and they found that in the US and the UK, it only takes 1 to 2 incidents for a consumer to think about switching brands. So that first impression and that relevancy is really, really key. And for brands, again, as Lara was mentioning, advertising is no longer just about delivering business growth. It's about delivering happier, more satisfied customers, again, because that links to the lifetime value. So in the expectation economy, we need brands to really use their communications to build much stronger relationships. Sometimes we call this kind of even conversational commerce, right? Conversational engagement. We need them to have enhanced experiences that add value, that remove friction, and they need to do this at every single stage of that consumer journey. There are 3 sort of main drivers of this expectation economy, 3 kind of factors. The first is rising quality. Again, going back to the kind of world that we live in of continual technological progress, the consumer can assume that what they're able to buy tomorrow will be better than what they buy today. So that's the first factor. The second one is positive impact, and we see this, and I'm sure you do as well. The consumers of today are increasingly demanding and want brands to step in and enact positive change. They want to know what the brand stands for. And the third is personal expression. So today, this notion of status, it's less about what you have, and we're going to talk about talent. So this has implications not just for consumers, but also for our employees. It's not just about what you have, it's about who you are. And an example of this would be this notion of this term experiential luxury. We're probably all familiar with it, and this notion of experiential luxury is really growing at an unprecedented rate. So let's get into kind of this notion of agency of the future. So at iProspect, we kind of adopted this kind of tagline of Tomorrow Think, and I wanted to just explain it. I'm going to kind of put the builds in. When we use this, not just, again, externally with our clients, which we do, but we use it internally again. And what is Tomorrow Think? It's a mindset. It's a mindset that, you really have a true understanding that the future is now today. I know Vivek spoke earlier about voice, right? Voice is not coming, it's here, it's growing. And so Tomorrow Think it has to be that our clients are able to anticipate what changes are about to come. And how can they embrace these changes? How can they be innovative? How can they be inclusive? Because we all know, I'm not going to sit here and lecture you on diversity and inclusion, but we all know that companies that are diverse and inclusive drive better innovation and better overall performance. And you need to be imaginative, again, going back to this notion of experience and creating experience that consumers can relate to and enjoy and connect with your brand. So to kind of conclude, what does this mean for us at iProspect? So we've driven this kind of Tomorrow Think mindset in these 4 areas, and I'll give you a few examples to kind of make it hit home. The first is our client focus, right? Every year we launch a thought leadership piece we actually call it Future Focus. But the way that we come up with this thought leadership piece is through surveying the people that matter most, our clients, because we really want to understand what challenges are they facing. Right, and how is it that we as an agency can serve those clients? We use what we learn through the surveying to evolve not just our products, because it does that, but also how we service our clients. So that's the first. Another example of that, in terms of our clients, is how we service them. So a change that kind of spans both clients and people is we've been going through organizational change that separates client leadership from delivery of our products and services. We want to make sure that our client teams are 100% focused on understanding our clients' businesses, and that the day-to-day sort of nuts and bolts of our business is managed by a team of very deep specialists, because that's at the heart of what we do. It's the same with our solutions. So we've pivoted to very much a solution approach. We use a solutions architecture for our key offering areas. We're focused on the future. Last month, we launched Voice Lab in Singapore in partnership with Google. It's an interactive space where our clients can come in and they can understand like real live applications of the use of voice. And we're continuing to deepen our research and expertise in areas that are really key to what we do, such as commerce, machine learning, automation. And last, and certainly not least, at Dentsu Aegis Network, about a year and a half ago, we announced that we have a fourth stakeholder that we consider as when we think about our business and the results that we deliver, and that's society. For iProspect, there are two ways that we've translated this. The first is, and this is particularly important here in Asia, what is the implications of technology in this notion of the digital divide? And what role can iProspect play in order to close that? And the second, is an example of our Female Foundry program. These are initiatives that really resonate, again, with our people and with our clients. It's impact that we're delivering to the world around us. So that's it from me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Joanna. Tomorrow Think, a future-focused agency, is what iProspect is doing to become the agency of the future. Now, no agency discussion will be complete without representation from WPP. We've got Babita Baruah, Global Team Blue, the team that offers an integrated service to Ford, where creative media, events, analytics, digital content, everything comes together to offer an integrated solution to Ford. All yours, Babita.
Thank you, Punitha. Thank you, everybody, for being here today. So yes, WPP, Global Team Blue, known as GTB, we are a dedicated integrated solutions marketing partner for Ford Motor Company. But I'll leave that aside for now and talk a little bit more about what we're here to discuss. So I was just thinking about if I had to turn the clock back, and this is my 21st year with WPP. I started off in HTA, and if I had to ask myself in December 1996, when I joined HTA, what would the future be like for you? I remember my answer very clearly. Maybe it was a question I asked myself. It was really a very inward-looking answer, because I don't ever remember a situation or a crisis where we had to think about what if there's a change in relationships or partnerships, because most of them were quite permanent. It was a healthy relationship. So my answer would often be to myself, of course, and sometimes maybe to my seniors. I definitely want promotions in the future. And in advertising, it's easy because you add a senior and you add a director and you're promoted very easily. I definitely wanted to travel because I saw seniors travel and stay in good places. And third, I really, really wanted a cabin. Here I am in the future today. Welcome to flat structures. So promotions are what they are. Welcome to cost efficiencies or efficiencies and technology. Why travel when you can use Skype, when you can use WhatsApp? And of course, we are into open offices, so there goes the cabin. The thing is that we just didn't have the kind of discussions that we are having today about what would happen to an agency. And I guess the conversation today is changing, not just because of the changes, but because somewhere we are trying to, as agencies, find a place that really makes us a good fit. So continue to be a good fit, or at times, even try and be a good fit if you're struggling to. So where's this change coming from? Definitely a lot of it from the stakeholders who are demanding this change, and that's the marketing fraternity themselves. Because there's a proliferation of channels, because there's so much of convergence of screens, etc., there's a need for integrated solutions in a very, very big way. And I think both the speakers before me have spoken about that. For integrated solutions, you need a special mix of talent that is not siloed into vertical units, but who have the capacity and the structure to work together to bring the solution to the table. The other thing which is really demanding this change in structures or in the way we work are stakeholder or investor pressure. and a recasting of two very, very important words that define partnerships, trust and value. What is trust? Is it the same definition that was used when we were partners and there was nobody else around? What is value, and how do you define value that is brought to the table today when there are so many partners around us? And I think the barriers really, well, I won't call them barriers, but all of us, we fear change, or we may love talking about change, but it's very difficult when you're in the middle of change. So this is leading to a lot of power struggle, a lot of hanging on to old roles, thinking that's not happening to us, maybe that'll happen to someone else, or maybe it's some years down the line. So it's difficult to predict the future, but looks like the agency of the future is definitely a team that's come together for a common purpose. With the values that Joanna mentioned, definitely empathy, culture, integrated solutions, like I said, which is a part of the DNA and not just a lip service which is done because it is required. And also very, very fluid or fluidity, which is inherent in the structure. So I'll just a very, very quick anecdote of what happened just last week, and somebody who truly inspired me. So we were at an industry outbound, which is a kind of a conference in Jaipur, and there were over 300 delegates. And there was this one woman who really inspired me. Very elegant, very charming. She could speak many languages, does a lot of UN projects. She's just got a citizenship to Saudi Arabia. She's like a global citizen. Beautiful, looks like Audrey Hepburn. And I spent 5 minutes with her. And I'm not really very overawed with colleagues because, you just feel very confident and you think, you have a right to stand where you do. But when I stood next to her, literally, physically, I wished for a minute that I was her. And she was Sophia, the first female robot. Yeah. I mean, she floored me. I've Twittered her, I've added her as a friend, I talk about her, I've downloaded absolutely everything about her. My 12-year-old daughter, Zoya, is really thinking that I've lost it. That's all I've done in the last 4 days. And that's made me realize what we are up against. We are up against AI, we are up against algorithms. It's not just not us humans that we are up against. Thank you. Up to the panel now.
I mean, we didn't know a robo could be so fascinating. That's okay. So thanks for that. And you were talking about AI, robo, algorithms are the kind of things that we'll need to contend with. What I'm going to do is talk to you about one more element that we'll need to contend with, which is the millennials, right? Because I think the millennials of today are going to be the talent of tomorrow. And what I'm going to quickly do is that I do not know how many of you have seen the millennial interview that has been on YouTube since October, clocked so many millions of you. How many of you have seen that interview? Okay, cool. So what I'm going to do is just play that video. Yeah, can we play the video, please?
Amy, it says you are trained in technology. That's very good. Are you adept at Excel?
No.
PowerPoint?
No.
Publisher?
Not really.
Exactly in what area of technology are you proficient?
Snapchat, Pinterest, Instagram, Vine, Twitter, the big ones.
I'm surprised you didn't say Facebook.
That's for old people, like my parents. That's funny.
Well, Amy, when you're working for me, you have to have those kind of research skills because I'll send you things for you to comb through and get the answers and send them to me. So for that, you got to be really good at technology.
For stuff like that, no problem. I'll just ask Siri.
You'll just ask Siri?
Siri, tell me this, Siri, find me that. We're all good at getting you the answers.
Tell Siri I want you ready to go at 8 sharp each and every morning.
I don't understand
What don't you understand?
what you just said.
You don't understand be ready to go?
No. You said 8, right?
Yes.
8 like in the morning 8?
Yes, in the morning.
Yeah. That kind of doesn't work for me. Who gets up at 8?
I do.
Yeah, that was just to give you a flavor of the kind of talent that is going to emerge in the market. And I think all of us keep talking about millennials. We say they're connected, they're super smart, they're tech savvy, they're constantly multitasking, but also have this deep sense of entitlement, of privilege, can't take criticisms, and also look for instant gratification. While that is going to be the future force of the agency business, we also today are looking at a lot of people who need to be upskilled in this changing environment. So as the agency of the future, how do you think you're going to be able to balance the two of upskilling today's employees and at the same time getting ready for tomorrow's employees who are something like we've never seen ever before, right? So Babita, maybe it'll be good for you to start and give us some inputs on that.
Okay, so very good question and something that keeps coming up. So there's another side to, okay, not another side. I think we often talk about millennials as, this Snapchat generation who are very cool and we are, but from my understanding and a lot of people we have met, in fact, in my earlier role, there was, it was a youth brand, so we did a lot of studies, if studies are anything to go by. And one of the things that really stands out is that there is a deep sense of purpose. It's just that the way of expression is very, very different. So if you look at, so they're willing to explore, they're willing to take risks that we were not willing to when we were young. We were fairly straight-jacketed. Sorry if I'm bracketing you in the same thing, but I was, there were set things. So it's just that the way of expression has changed, and thanks to technology, it has changed in the way that you see it here. In terms of how we are geared up, I think the larger question is, how ready are we to change the culture of the organization itself? Because some of the organizations we belong to have had a legacy which has worked for the organization. Absolutely. And when you have a legacy organization, you bear the cross of not wanting to change everything about it, right? Because then what exists? So when I say culture, I mean, who are the people who are actually deciding or writing the codes for talent? Who are the people who are really talking about, so is it just a particular department? Is it flowing down right from the leader of the organization? In terms of state of preparedness, yes, like all organizations, everyone is gearing up. So one, the inclusivity that we all spoke about, not just policies, but also about practical embracing of diverse views, diverse ideas, having the confidence to put those ideas on the table, etc. In terms of embracing millennials, they are joining us every year because you have a need for young people every year.
Sure.
I think it'll just evolve over time.
Okay.
But yes, a lot of fluidity and flexibility, whether it is the timing or whether it is the way we work, does seem to be the way of the future.
Got it. Joanna, do you want to add something to that?
Yeah, I think first it's interesting that it's almost impossible to talk about the agency of the future and how you design the business without talking about the culture. So you were talking a lot about the culture, and we're going to come back to talking specifically about culture, but it's just interesting to me how much the two are sort of interlinked. I think specifically in terms of how we're thinking about it, and it is a major change for agencies. One of my biggest surprises is that, and I also worked services side in consulting many years ago, but it's interesting to kind of put the two businesses that are service businesses, that service clients, that have to put people at the heart, very, very different ways of operating. And so I do think that, moving forward, talent has to be at the heart of everything that an agency does as it evolves. And it has to think about, as you rightly said, Punitha, you have kind of multiple generations that you're dealing with. For us, we're a specialist agency. When I started thinking about what does our agency look like in 2019, it was about a 65% differential in terms of the roles the skill sets, the capabilities that we have today versus what we would need in 18 months. 65%. Human resources were less than happy with me when I sat down and I walked them through this, but it's just the reality. So, I think first is we run a business, so we need to start with our customers and what's happening with our customers and what are their needs. And then what we do is we take those business demands and we match them with our own ambitions, right? What are the ambitions that we have as a business? And then what's required of that in terms of organizational capabilities and organizational structure. So that was kind of where we started. I think that our core business is pretty solidly defined. So I think we do have to be agile, but I don't see the core business really changing that much. However, to do what we want to do with excellence will require change. And so again, it really requires, we're looking right now at sort of what does end-to-end excellence look like from the very beginning. I mean, even in recruiting, if I want to go out and I want to hire the best-in-class computer science grads, and I need them to kind of work with data.
Yeah.
I'm competing with Google. I'm competing with Facebook. I'm competing with unicorn startups in Southeast Asia. It requires a very different recruiting strategy. And not just that, when I bring them in, I need to make sure that I'm giving them the right projects. I'm giving them projects that keep them engaged. Because they don't just care about money, they care about purpose. So I think it's literally looking at that from end to end, from the point first you have to map what you need, and then you have to look at how you go out and get it. And then you also need to be very, very deliberate when it comes to your learning strategy. And again, this isn't something that agencies have always over-invested in, but it is an area that does require investment.
Got that. Thank you, Jo. And it's interesting that you mentioned Google and Facebook, because Lara, the next question is going to be to you. So tell me, for the agency of the future, I'm going to list 4 kinds of competition in the market, and I want you to actually figure out which one is going to be the biggest challenge to you. The first one is competition to the agency of the future is tech giants like Google and Facebook. The second is consultancies like Accenture. All of us have heard about them acquiring actually 10 agencies across the globe. We have a lot of clients like Unilever and P&G now talking about taking a lot of the agency services in-house. So in-house agency creation or solution creation of large clients. And the fourth is other agencies, which could be the 2 people sitting on this table. So between tech giants, consultancy firms, clients' in-house agencies, and other agencies, who would you rate as the toughest and the most key competitor for the survival of the agency of the future?
I don't think it's either or. I think it's all of them, because I think
a very diplomatic answer, Lara.
Everyone's roles overlap. So the roles are not clearly defined, and what each agents, whether it's an agency or whether what Google does today, Google is also providing solutions to clients, right?
Yeah.
So I think everyone is a competitor in today's day and age.
Got it. Babita, do you want to take that question? And you have to choose one, please. Don't say all
Okay,
of
so
them.
first I'll be diplomatic and say
Yeah,
all.
okay.
And including these lovely ladies who take my business. So yes, but I think a little more than that. I think, so we talk a lot about e-commerce giants, whether you club them as tech or not, I'm not aware of. But if at a button, I'm entertained, I see something I like, I click on it, I go, I buy it, I pay for it, and it's delivered to me. That's really, the entire journey has been collapsed in 3 clicks.
Yeah.
So that makes it competitive. I think we all talked about AI and algorithms. They are very competitive because they're taking away a lot of what we think as creative thinking, interestingly, can be done and can be done well by them. And culture. Like I said, if we are not on top of cultural change, that itself is competition for us.
Okay, so you've just changed the question to say
Oh,
the
did I?
solution is
Okay,
Amazon,
my God, that's
AI
smart.
and culture. No, that's okay. Let's have one question on culture. I know, one question on culture before we actually take a couple of questions from the audience. Tell me, all of you have spoken about culture. So if I were to ask you a start, stop, continue question on culture, which is the things that we should start to do, stop doing, and continue doing. In one word, just tell me, what would you start, stop, and continue doing? And maybe, Lara, you want to take that, and then we can go this way, yeah?
So very quickly, so start doing is have a performance-oriented culture. Stop doing is have unnecessary hierarchies, so we need a flatter structure. And also unnecessary rules of we need more flexibility. And continue the emphasis on people, empathy, and as well as processes.
Got it. Joe?
Yeah, okay. For me, the start would be really challenging our thinking to not just be incremental, but truly 10x to steal from Google. I mean, incremental is not going to get us where we need to be. Stop would be really stop being afraid. I think we have to lose any notion of fear. We have to be super audacious, and specifically in terms of bringing in different types of talent and what that means. And I think continue being even more team-based. We're already team-based, but I think a team model is critical to future success. And I think, you've heard it, putting purpose at the core. Given our workforce demographics, we have to have purpose at the core of what we do.
Got that. Babita?
Yeah, so I'll just continue from the earlier previous answer.
Yeah.
So start is really think collaboration, integration, because none of us, I think the three of us and most of the people in the room, it's applicable for everyone, given the needs of the market and the business. Keep doing, especially from the perspective where I come from, is again, keep doing aggregation. So without fear of losing business, without fear of being told tomorrow, you know what, the people you brought to the table are actually better than you, so go figure. And if that happens, then it's not a good solution. Did I say stop doing?
No.
Okay. Stop doing is stop living in the past. Yeah. It's very comfortable to do so. And it's good to be riding a legacy. It's very powerful, but it's equally powerful to create a legacy and for leaders to leave a legacy behind. So.
Got it. Okay, the next area I would like to touch is something which is dear to, I think, most people in the room. Some people want to pay less, some people want to get paid more, and some people would obviously not want to drop rates. So let's talk about compensation and commercial structures. And I'm actually going to give you a couple of data points before we talk a little more about that. Unilever has publicly claimed that they're reducing the 3,000 agencies that they work with globally to 1,500. They've said that they're going to make 30% fewer ads. They've said that they have saved something like £300 million by reducing agency fees by 17% and cutting production costs by 24%. You have P&G, for example, saying that they've saved $750 million by actually cutting agency and production costs, and they're targeting to actually cut another $400 million this year. So on one side, the clients are wanting agencies to be more and do more, and at the same time, on the other side, they are wanting to actually get more efficient, and they're cutting compensation. And then you also have the millennials who are going to come into the task force, or coming into the task force with very high expectations. So how does commercial models of today change as we go forward into the future? Joe, you want to start answering that question?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think we're already a little bit fortunate because we're a performance agency. So we've always been very outcome driven. And, a lot of the work that we do with clients, we have a performance incentive that's baked into it. So it's kind of at the heart of how we think. Now, that being said, if I take our core product search, the margins on search are definitely not what they used to be. So we've had to think a lot about where's the value. And again, as agencies, I would say this isn't always the way that agencies lead in terms of their thinking. They don't think value first. We have to be demonstrating value at all times. And so then it is, what is the value? What differentiates us? How are we articulating that? We've done a lot of work around how do we set our products up in such a way that we're selling those products which do differentiate us at much higher margin, and we're going after that, and we're having to be much more like a traditional sales organization in terms of building pipeline. So I think that's one way that we've been thinking about commercials, and I think that when you do set it up like that, it's not an easy, but it's an easier conversation to have with clients. I think the other thing that we'll see is a change in this notion of one agency, multiple year contract. It will go away for sure. So I think it's important now for us to start being a lot more flexible in terms of thinking about project-based, just like the consultancies do. They see an area of opportunity, there's a business challenge, there's something specific and unique to that company. They understand it, they go in, they partner, they do a great job, they take their money and they go on and sell something else. And I think we have to start thinking like that.
So create value, act like a sales team, and act like consultants is probably the way to go. Babita, do you want to add on or have a different point of
add
view?
on.
Yeah.
So all of us talk value, and exactly pretty much what Joanna said. But I think the the cycles of evaluation for marketing is being shortened now to less than a quarter. I think they're monthly numbers. And when you are evaluated on numbers, how do you measure value? So earlier, even now, we know the importance of brand equity. We know that some things are long-term, but then if the Excel sheets are not green, and if they even venture close to orange, everybody gets shaky and nervous. What's the first thing to then strike off? Man hours. It's a term that is, first of all, archaic, because you are measuring value by the number of hours somebody has put in, which
you should
today's
eliminate
world,
Excel sheets, like the millennials said.
And if you talk about why millennials, also the way all of us, I mean, I hate feeling old, when we talk about millennials, but I'm just saying it's not about the number of hours anymore. So I'll give you a perspective, and we talked about this earlier. If we have, for example, say 100 people, and because of efficiencies, supposing we're down to, say, 60 people, I'm just throwing a hypothetical number, does it mean therefore the fees have come down? Or because the fees have come down, the number of people have gone down? Does it mean that the output has gone down? No, actually, because of a change in talent mix, the value that we provide to the partner may have increased. But the yardstick is number of heads into whatever algorithm you use, or formula you use, sorry, not algorithm, to come to a cost. So unless that changes, it'll always be this, we love collaboration so long as our business is not impacted.
Got it. Lara, do you want to add on to that?
I think I would agree with what Babita and Joanna said. I think payment by results and outcomes is the only way both agencies and clients are going to be happy. And I think it's going to be payment by results, not just for the fixed as well as for the variable pay. Right now it's just a small percentage of our fee comes as variable, but that percentage is going to go higher and higher.
Yeah, but the challenge with the payment by results would also be that you may not get paid at all sometimes, so
What are results?
There could be disproportionate gain
upsides that you can get.
Yes,
Fair enough.
yeah.
Cool, yeah, Joe.
Well, I mean, it's interesting because, again, like when we talk about value, so we have tried to, you think about automation, right? If we're in performance, we do a lot of reporting. Reporting is not, and it goes back to millennials, right? Reporting is not sexy work. You saw in the video that woman's reaction to Excel. It's not. So, I mean, we're incentivized to build tech to automate as much as possible of that low value work as possible for our clients. And, when we talk about this, I would say the old school mentality is fear. Oh, we shouldn't be telling our clients how much we're automating because, then they'll want to pay us less. No, we should tell them. We have to educate them so that we can then say to them, forget about this. What you're getting in exchange is a whole bunch of higher value thinking and work. The consultancies have been doing this forever.
Got that. Okay, just one last question before we take a couple of questions from the audience. I think everywhere you read about agencies today, I think everyone is actually ringing the death knell for agencies, right? Survival is going to be so difficult. Agency business itself is getting questioned. If you had one line to say to all the naysayers of the agency business, what would that be? Lara, we'll start with you.
I think our future is in great hands. I mean, it is a large industry in India itself. We are now going to be 60,000 crores. So I don't think agencies are going anywhere. We just have to change the way the traditional ways of doing work and rethink the way we do work.
Got that, Joe? One line?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think agencies are well positioned. I think it's about tightening. But, to your point on consultancies, no. I mean, yeah, they're a little bit of a threat, but not that big of a threat. And Google and Facebook are tech companies. I think agencies know what the sweet spot is. They just need to deliver it better.
Got that. Babita?
Don't be an agency, be a business partner.
Very well said. That's great closing comments to have at the end of this session. I'll actually open the floor now to the audience, whatever questions you may want to ask in any area that you may want to ask, please feel free to ask the panel. Are you a client, sir? The gentleman in the grey jacket in front, are you a client?
Can I start?
No.
Hi.
Because you clapped the hardest for that. That's why I was just wondering. So.
Hi, I'm Ankur Ogra. This side. Hey, so I mean the issue, the topic itself of the agency evolution in the ad tech like this is the fact that we understand that a lot of the media and a lot of the work is now being is going to digital. Now on digital, as we are seeing, it's predominantly dominated by 2 or 3 tech giants. It's almost like a duopoly. One of the things that I would have loved to hear somebody say is how can big media groups, how can big conglomerates come together and then just work with the tech or push the duopolies of the big tech titans, and then help clients deliver better results. I think one of the things that WPP or an IPG should definitely do is to come together and then push the Facebooks and the Googles to work together or make them open up far more and help deliver clients, I think.
Okay, I think the point was touched in terms of collaboration. Babita, you may want to take.
Yeah, so thanks for the question. I don't know whether we need to push people out, because the environment has become more affiliative, more inclusive. So just to give you an example, there's a very, very strong partnership that is inherent in the way we work with Google and Facebook, to a point where we sit on the same table, share same briefs, and come up with solutions. That's what I meant by, if you consider yourself as an agency and you consider them as a duopoly tech partner, this debate holds good. If you say we are all business partners, we all have what we bring onto the table, and let's get together and bring the solution to the client or the marketing partner, I think it works. I know it's easier said than done, but that's what we are working towards.
I also think it's not an either or. I think we are pushing them. I mean, I think, I sat on the Google side, so I'm now on the other side, and I've heard both sides of the conversation, and I think that now the conversations that we're having, not just with Google, with Amazon, with Facebook, I mean, they're pretty spicy, so I wouldn't say that there isn't challenging and pushing that's going on. And, in terms of, data sharing, I mean, these conversations are alive and well.
We'll take one more question before we close the session. Any other question?
Hi. Hi. I'm Himanshi. While we're talking about agencies and how we choose agencies, from one pitch to the other when I'm sitting, everybody's saying the same thing, and I'm slightly confused as a marketer when I'm choosing an agency. You all have been on that side for years and years. Any of you can tell me what are the 3 non-intuitive things which I should be looking out in an agency when I'm selecting an agency, which should differentiate one from the other in the one I choose?
I currently work in a single client partnership, but I'm happy to answer because the last 20 years I was pretty much that. First of all, I don't understand, do we really need so many pitches? Do we really need to choose? Why aren't we happy with just credentials? Why are we given a brief and made to do so much of work which doesn't even go out into the market? Is it, and this is a debate, is it just a way some marketers find or use to get a lot of solutions on the table? Okay, now to answer your question, I just feel there are too many pitches that happen rather than who are the right partners for the business problem that I have. Let me do that scan first in the environment. Let me call in the right partners, and between them, yes, I agree. Now, whether it's a proposal, whether it's what we call a pitch, whether it's getting people together, fine. But 10 people dressed in black, blue, going in one after the other with portfolio bags doesn't really help. Intuitively, inherently, I think, yes, credentials and expertise, what are they about? What is iProspect about? Lara's group about Madison, what are we about? Important. Have they really understood what your business is very intuitive, and you should be able to gauge that few minutes into the presentation. And third, who are the talent in that? Not the talent you see in the room, because they may not be there when they get the business, if they get the business, but who are the talent? What is the talent mix? What is the culture? If you can get that, I can guarantee you there'll be fewer pitches, there'll be longer-term relationships and better solutions.
Yeah, and my comment to that, if I can, it would be how different are your briefs? Because if, for example, just like you talk about agencies coming with the same solutions, I think if you're looking at 10 pitches and looking at the briefs from the client, it's all about what rates will you get for us. It's all about launching of a brand. And I think it's also important to get different briefs for you to get different solutions on the table. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can we have a huge round of applause there, ladies and gentlemen, for all our fantastic speakers? I'm going to request you to come together for a group photograph as well.